Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Sid Alpha and welcome to this week's Line of Sight, the Exclusively Games weekly news roundup. This week has been interesting in terms of gaming news, and in case some of you haven't noticed, Blizzard has pretty much dominated the news cycle over the course of the past week. And while I could easily spend the entire video on just that one topic, I wanted to make sure we at least picked up on some industry topics outside of the Blizzard controversy that has spread like wildfire across the internet. But we do have some other topics that are worth discussing for you this week as well, brought to you by our unofficial sponsor for the video series, bacon. Yes, bacon, whether it be fried, baked, chopped, deep fried, served by itself in a sandwich, on a steak, or on a salad, bacon is the food that makes all other foods worth having. Hashtag not sponsored by bacon. Also, don't forget to check out the website over at exclusivelygames.com for the latest in video game news. Exclusivelygames.com is an ad-free website that is kept running by the continued support of its readers and sets out to push gaming news, not a political agenda. So let's look at what's on the list. For this week, we have Blizzard, because we have to talk about Blizzard and the hot water they landed themselves in this week over the banning of the Hearthstone eSports player Blitzchung. Summerfall Studios are working on something we haven't seen within the games industry before, an interactive musical video game. And lastly, Epic Games has pulled off an epic troll as their game Fortnite has literally been sucked into a black hole. And now that we're all queued up, let's get started. Of course, in a weekly news roundup, we can't escape the fact that the controversy surrounding Blizzard over the course of the past week simply cannot be avoided. Full disclosure, I have covered this topic extensively on my own channel, and I do personally have some very strong opinions on this topic, but I will do my best to leave my emotions at the door and simply talk about the events that happened. Last Sunday, on a post-match interview during the Hearthstone Asia Pacific Grandmasters Tournament, the two casters asked the esports player Blitzchung to say the 8 words, then we'll end the stream immediately, to which the casters then hid their faces and Blitzchung shouted out, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age." Immediately after that, the live stream broadcast went to commercial before the stream was ended entirely, and the VOD of that live stream was then deleted. 2 days later, Blizzard posted this statement in which they said that due to rules violation, Blitzchung would have his earnings for that tournament that had already totaled $10,000 US would be revoked, that Blitzchung would be banned from any Blizzard tournament for a period of 1 year, and the esports casters involved were immediately fired. In that statement, Blizzard cited the rule in question, which is worded in a way as to mean that a person would violate the rule if they engaged in any act that would bring the individual into public disrepute, offend a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damage Blizzard's image, and the determination on if that occurred was at Blizzard's sole discretion. The severity of the action taken by Blizzard sparked an immediate and massive response from the gaming community. Many people began canceling World of Warcraft subscriptions, uninstalling any Blizzard games, and many people even went so far as to begin deleting their Blizzard accounts entirely, an act that caused a secondary controversy as the little-used system buckled under the sudden strain placed upon it. A further outrage was caused by this translation of a Twitter post made by the Hearthstone Weibo account apologizing profusely over Blitzchung's actions, as this was seen to be a Western corporation bowing to the censorious demands of the Chinese government. In retaliation, internet goers came up with several different creative methods of protest over Blizzard's actions. Most notable among them were 3 distinct actions. The first was a call for massive numbers of European gamers to send in GDPR requests to Blizzard, which is a time-intensive and expensive process, and even went so far as to draft a form letter to send to Blizzard, which was created to maximize the amount of information they would be forced to provide. The second avenue of protest came in the form of what I have taken to be calling Freedom May. It immediately sparked a great many artists to come up with different versions of May supporting the Hong Kong protests in the hopes that the protesters would catch wind and begin using May in their pro-democracy message, an attempt that seems to have begun to see results per this Reddit post that depict a paper printout of Freedom May being used by a Hong Kong protester. The third was a couple of enterprising individuals that started up a GoFundMe in order to produce hundreds of shirts supporting Hong Kong that are to be handed out for free to be worn by people at BlizzCon, which at the time of this recording has raised a little over $3,600 of its $5,000 goal, with a statement that any donations over the goal would be sent to Human Rights Watch. Again, full disclosure, I myself did donate $100 to this project, as can be seen in this screenshot. As a result of the outrage this controversy produced, Blizzard released a lengthy statement that, if I were to read it in its entirety, would take up most of the time we have for the Line of Sight videos, in which they attempted to further explain their position and also in which they stated they would be returning the $10,000 to Blitzchung, reduce his ban from 1 year to 6 months, and also reduce the penalty for the two casters from being fired to a 6-month ban as well. This statement, which was posted after the stock market had closed, was late in the day on Friday, which has been seen as a tactical positioning to dilute the backlash the statement would receive and limit the impact of Blizzard's stock prices and also limit the amount of news coverage as well. There is a massive amount of information involved, and unfortunately not all of it can be included here. However, Mark Kern, one of the creators of the original World of Warcraft, panned the statement and its timing, as well as stating that the Blizzard post was made in order to further appease NetEase and the Chinese government. The gaming community has also not taken the Blizzard post in good graces, and as such, a great deal of animosity towards Blizzard remains, raising the question by many as to what BlizzCon will be like this year, and there are further concerns that have not been addressed, as many gamers are profoundly worried about Western corporations bowing down to the extremely censorious nature of the Chinese government that has already banned both Winnie the Pooh and for also banning South Park, scrubbing their existence and any mention of them from the Chinese internet. The Chinese market is highly lucrative, going toe-to-toe with the United States in terms of gaming revenue spend each year, and this provides massive pressure on these companies to toe the Chinese line if they wish to do business in that market. And that is, at its heart, what has made so many Blizzard fans so angry, and it is a topic that is not being addressed by Blizzard in any way. So it would seem that, in spite of their best efforts, Blizzard is being left out in the cold. Our next story I included simply because this is a rare moment where I feel genuine excitement over the prospect of not only a new video game, but a new style of video game, one that hasn't been seen in this industry before. I'm speaking about Chorus, an interactive video game musical being developed by Summerfall Studios. Summerfall Studios is being helmed by David Gaider and Liam Essler. David Gaider, for those of you that aren't aware, lent his talents during what many have called BioWare's golden days, writing for Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, Baldur's Gate 2 and its expansion, Neverwinter Nights and those expansions, and the Dragon Age series, like all of them, all of the Dragon Age games. Liam Essler as well has a long list of RPG writing experience, including Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, Icewind Dale Enhanced Edition, Pillars of Eternity, and numerous others. Joining them is Austin Wintory, an American composer who has created music for Journey, the Banner Saga series, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and many additional games. Along with him, they also have Troy Baker, an accomplished voice actor who has been in more things than I can count. Chorus itself is a narrative-driven adventure and interactive musical with branching story arcs where your decisions craft the songs and what outcome they will have. The story idea follows where your main character encounters the god Calliope. Then somehow Calliope dies, passing on her soul to the main character, who is then accused by the other gods of her murder. The main character is then placed on trial for Calliope's murder, and you are tasked with finding out the truth behind her death. It's an entirely new spin on the narrative adventure format that, being driven by the skills of those mentioned, promises to be very interesting indeed. Well, at least interesting for me. Obviously, personal tastes will vary. Our final story for the week involves the ending of Fortnite's Season 11 and the Fortnite game being literally sucked into a black hole. Yes, as of earlier today, players logging into Fortnite are able to see nothing but the black hole that has consumed the island during the Season 11 finale, in what Epic Games has turned into a massive PR trolling exercise. Since this occurrence, people found that entering the Konami code would enable a Galaga-style minigame where you, a slice of pizza, defends against falling Durr Burgers. Also, Epic Games has begun showing a series of numbers that came in the sequence of 11, 146, 15, and 62. This has led to numerous theories as to what these numbers mean, but funnily enough, when those numbers are entered into Google Maps, you are greeted with this image, which seems to be a reference to the crab rave meme. In addition, the Fortnite Twitter account shows the current black hole. Along with that, the Fortnite website now shows a live view of the black hole, as does their Instagram account. Of course, something like this takes bravery of epic proportions, as it's not every game developer that would troll their entire player base and willingly take down their own game and refusing to allow people to play it post-season. This has caused a great deal of difficulty for Fortnite streamers, but it is a PR stunt that seems to be working, as literally everyone is talking about it. Of course, this seemingly has caused issues with the Epic Games Store as well, causing disruptions that prevented people from logging in for over an hour. In addition, Apple seems to have accidentally leaked what is in store for Fortnite after this massive troll in images titled Fortnite Chapter 2 on the Italian Apple Store. This seems to indicate that Fortnite players will have a new map to be able to play around on, which means that in some form or another, the world of Fortnite will survive the black hole. But that's all the time we have for you today on this week's Line of Sight. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video or if you have your own thoughts on these stories, please let me know down in the description below. Also, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. And in the name of the Holy Order of Bacon, share this video on social media. If you would like to hear more from me on these topics or others, don't forget to check me out on my YouTube channel over at youtube.com/SidAlpha. Link is in the description below. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Sid Alpha, and I'll see you next time.
Betty, 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 Betty.